Typhoon Geme is moving towards southern China after pummeling Taiwan and the Philippines with torrential rain and strong winds. The authorities in mainland China have issued this year's first red alert for parts of the southern southeastern coast. The storm hit Taiwan on Wednesday, killing 3 people and forcing thousands to evacuate. As we heard, the Philippine Coast Guard has found the body of a missing sailor from an oil tanker that sank in Manila Bay. Our correspondent Rupert Wingfield Hayes is in the Taiwanese capital, Taipei.
Well, as you can probably see, it is still raining here in Taipei. It's been raining solidly for the last 24 hours, but also the winds have now dropped in the last couple of hours. Very strong winds this morning. Now the storm has pretty much passed in terms of winds, off into the Taiwan Strait, now heading for the southeast coast of China. It sat over the island for most of the night, slowed right down, and did a big circle over Taiwan. It moved very slowly over the mountains last night, and that means there was a huge amount of rainfall, which has caused extensive flooding in the east and south of the island. Sadly, yes, as you say, several people have been reported as being killed from falling trees and falling masonry during those very high winds last night. But other than that, the damage fortunately appears to have been limited. As I say, quite extensive flooding, but in terms of structural damage, that appears to be fairly limited, and most places seem to have come through this storm fairly unscathed. We now have reports of a ship off the south coast of Taiwan sinking, and the crew of that ship is currently missing. That's what the Coast Guard is telling us. So there is a rescue operation ongoing off the south coast of Taiwan to try and find the crew of that ship. But other than that, the storm has now mainly passed and is heading for the southeast coast of China.
Well, let's speak to Jan C. Bromby now, a journalist based in Taipei. Welcome to you. What's the latest that you can tell us about this information coming in from the Philippine Coast Guard about this oil tanker?
That's right. That information is coming in only in the last few minutes about the fact that the Philippine Coast Guard has found the body of the sailors. Sorry, these fishermen that were thought to be missing on this ship. I should say the sailors. We didn't know actually before. They weren't specifying whether they thought that this ship had been impacted by the typhoon. It seems now that the Coast Guard is suggesting that this has come as a result of those wild and choppy waters that we've been seeing as a result of the typhoon that spread. It didn't actually make landfall in the Philippines, but still had a big impact before shifting up, picking up strength, and making landfall over Taiwan in the last 24 hours.
And Jan, what more can you tell us about the latest impact this typhoon has had where you are?
Well, as Rupert was saying, the impact in Taipei has thankfully been relatively small. You walk around, the streets are far emptier than you would imagine. They're having what's called a typhoon day, which means schools are closed, shops are closed, businesses are largely closed, although some have remained open. You can see people have boarded up their windows to protect them from any kind of damage. But the real focus now is shifting away from Taipei and down towards the south and the east of Taiwan's island. There, we've seen significant levels of rainwater and flooding, even in the city of Kaohsiung in the south. Social media videos show water flooding down into car parks, and people trudging through the streets that were once filled with cars, now filled with flood water. As Rupert was adding, there has been a ship that we believe has sunk, essentially, with 9 Myanmar nationals on board. Those nationals are missing and haven't been heard from since the distress signal they sent out. 3 other ships also ran aground off the southern coast of Taiwan. The hopes from the local Coast Guard and local governments are that they will be able to rescue the people on those ships very soon.
Okay, Jan, thank you for updating us there from Taipei.